you're anything like me, you've probably gone most of your life believing that the moon is a totally inactive, dead place. A boring gray ball of rock surrounded by something of a vacuum, harboring an insignificant amount of atmosphere, where nothing exciting ever happens. If you haven't delved very far into study of the cosmos, you may be surprised to discover that there is much more to the moon than we've been led to believe. The moon is an anomaly for a satellite body. Most satellites orbiting their respective planets are very small in comparison with their gravitationally conjoined counterpart. The moon, however, is more of a planet than a typical moon. It is larger than any other satellite in respect to the size of the body it orbits in our solar system. In fact, it is larger than Pluto, and very similar to the planet Mercury, both in size and surface features. Quite unique in its shape, our moon is not as spherical elliptical as most other planets and moons, but takes on an egg or pear shape due to the influence of Earth's gravitational field. The Earth-Moon system is something more of a double planet system than a planet with a satellite moon. In respect to comparative size, it might be more accurate to think of it as less of a satellite moon and more like Earth's sibling. Contrary to popular belief, the moon actually does have an atmosphere containing air. It is thinner than Earth's sea level atmospheric pressure, but air is there in its considerable atmosphere. When viewed under proper lighting circumstances, it becomes evident that the surface of the moon is not just gray, but colored with the entire spectrum, from brown and red earth tones to dazzling blues and enormous patches of green. Though of a more tenuous nature than what is seen on Earth, clouds, mists, water, and seismic activity have been scientifically documented on the moon. There are unspoken of artificial elements of the moon that have been discovered that the space agencies and insiders remain tight-lipped about. Throughout history, there are many records of the moon hosting bizarre displays of lights, sometimes blinking repeatedly, other times in groups, and some shining for hours on end. Astonishingly, buildings, ancient ruins, evidence for mining activity, and many artificial anomalies have been discovered on the moon. You will see that there is much more to the moon than you have been told, and will be informed on how NASA, civilian in appearance, but in reality a quasi-branch of the military, along with the international power elites, have been deceiving the general public about the facts of the moon missions and what was encountered there. NASA's founding charter says it shall be a defense agency of the United States. They're presented to the public with a civilian director. However, he really is under the command of the military. Instead of one-dimensional thinking, an active mind can entertain multiple scenarios coinciding. Some don't question anything they're told. Some question everything they're told, skeptical that we never went to the moon because of the discovery of deception and faked footage and photos released to the public. Others say we went, but the faked imagery was released in an effort to conceal any mission mishaps, details of the voyage, and the amazing discoveries there. One thing for certain is that truth is very often stranger than fiction. Authentic science is questioning while being open to all possibilities at the same time. The viewer is encouraged to be both open-minded and a critical thinker, and to always make up your own mind. Gravity and the third state of matter. It is helpful to be reminded that indeed the moon has quite a substantial gravitational force. The moon's gravity is so strong, in fact, that it affects us here on Earth greatly. Look at the phenomenon of the ocean tides rising due to the pull of the moon, where the moon's gravity interacts with the oceans on Earth. Liquid water is a very heavy substance, and to achieve the ocean tidal rises that occur takes a tremendous amount of power. While it's an overly simplified analogy, think about how much force it would take to lift a rain barrel full of water. Now imagine the unfathomably huge volume of Earth's water affected by the lunar tides and the amount of mass that is moved. It is clear that the moon exhibits an extremely strong gravitational influence from afar. For the pull of the moon can even uplift solid Earth, what the scientific community calls an Earth tide. Moving to the moon's local environment, this hefty gravitational pull from our planetoid neighbor would not exclude lunar matter's third state of existence, gases. Vapors and gases on the moon are also affected by its gravity and do not defy physics, exhibiting extreme anti-gravity properties, flying out into space away from the moon's influence, as if there was no constraining physical force in action. Different gases have different densities, but they do have density, and being so close to this world, they too are held down by its intense gravity and remain under its power. The porous lunar crust is honeycombed with a vast system of caves, crevices, and hollows of all sizes, and giant holes and openings are found all over the moon where air resides. An interesting point showing that the moon's atmosphere is definitely not a near vacuum and is dense with air involves the nature of dust on the lunar surface. Dust does not float in a vacuum, yet Apollo astronauts, assuming that at least some of the moon footage and testimonies are authentic, purportedly experienced plenty of floating dust on the moon. The reason why dust floats is because it is interacting with a medium of dense, gaseous air to suspend it. In relation to the surface dust, a notable experiment on dust in a vacuum versus dust in a regular atmosphere of air is the dropping of a steel ball onto a thick surface of powder. When the ball is dropped in an airy atmosphere, it sinks into the powder as it lands, as you would normally witness. Yet, when this ball drop is repeated in a vacuum environment, it will land on the surface of the powder and not readily sink in, as there is no air in between the particles making up the powder dust to cushion the fall. In a vacuum, powder becomes rigid and stiff and does not float. The only reason why a powder can be in a fluffy state of matter versus a solid state of matter is the abundant air in between the particles of the powder. Acclaimed scientist, selenographer, which is someone who studies the moon, and author V.A. Fursoff, in his book Strange World of the Moon, An Inquiry into Lunar Physics, states, "In the strict meaning of physical science, the question whether the moon possesses an atmosphere does not exist, for even the heaviest and hardest solid substances evaporate, their vapor pressures rising with temperature, so that when exposed to the vacuum of space, they would at once form a kind of atmosphere. Even dense matter vaporizes or sublimates when exposed to heat. When elements age, they release gas as they decay. The gases and vapors emitted from all the elements on the moon would obey physics and dwell within the moon's physical control. Why should we expect the moon's chemistry to defy physical science? Oxygen is the most abundant element on the moon, and surely its gaseous state is contained by mighty lunar gravity, this colossal force that tugs on the oceans of Earth some 240,000 miles away. The neutral zone and its revised location. The neutral point in space is the region where the force of Earth's gravity and the force of the moon's gravity equalize and cancel each other out. The original estimate to determine the strength of lunar gravity was calculated by the hypothesized location of the gravitational neutral point in space and its distance from the moon. This neutral area was first thought to be located just less than 25,000 miles from the moon. During early lunar missions, however, it was discovered that the estimate for this location was completely off. Instead of being less than 25,000 miles from the moon, in reality, it was found to be located closer to a much greater distance of 44,000 miles from it. The position of this area of space where lunar gravity overrides Earth's gravity was vastly underestimated, for it is located nearly twice the distance from the moon than first thought. Using this theorized location of the neutral zone, the moon's gravity was initially calculated to be just 1/6 of Earth's. However, we now know that this estimate is a far cry from the truth about the strength of this world's gravity. Using math to recalculate the strength of the moon's gravity, factoring in the real distance of the neutral point from the moon, works out to the gravitational pull of the moon being about 64% of the strength of Earth's gravity, not 1/6, which is a mere 16% of Earth's gravity. Yet for some odd reason, completely aware of the updated real location of the neutral zone and the implications this had for the strength of the moon's gravity, NASA maintained the fable to the public that the moon's gravity was just 1/6 of Earth's, which continues to live on to this day in popular culture. Why the deception? We will elaborate on this further on in the program, but it is related to the other fable that the moon has little to no atmosphere, for there are big implications of a powerful gravitational force on the moon. If people believe that there is an insignificant amount of gravity on the moon, then they may be able to be convinced that the moon doesn't have the strength to hold gases in its atmosphere. The motivations behind this falsehood will become clearer after viewing the entirety of this presentation. If the moon has the strength to grab our vast oceans from an incredible distance in space, Surely it exhibits enough force to tug on matter in the form of gases in its immediate vicinity, forming an atmosphere not completely different from other planets such as Mars and Earth. This concludes part 1 of Much More to the Moon. However, be sure to stay tuned for upcoming episodes in this documentary series, where we will explore a wide range of information related to the moon and our experiences interacting with our next-door neighbor, and the implications of the truth about lunar and space exploration. This information will tie into the subjects of Earth-based power structures, economy, energy, and reasons behind the secrecy. You will learn of amazing UFO encounters en route to and from and at the moon itself that are not being told to the public. We will bring to light revealing verbal admissions from astronauts and their censored mission communications, and will immerse ourselves in astounding information from both military and civilian insiders about lunar discoveries and the greater picture. Also, in an upcoming episode, the phenomenon of remote viewing intelligence gathering on the moon will be explored, and we will investigate the possibility of secret bases, and, as hard to believe as it sounds, the potential for civilizations of people and ETs living there. Revealed will be secret US and Soviet cooperation in the space front, and light will be shed on the 100-plus years of classified military black projects in advanced aviation technology. In addition, we will discuss the nature of ETs and their relationship with mankind, and the possible real reasons for why we never officially went back to the moon. The prospect of a breakaway civilization equipped with classified Star Trek-type technology will be elaborated upon, and we will look into what we can do to get them to admit the truth to the world. The liberation of advanced energy technology, implicated in the accounts you will learn of, could usher in a golden era of unlimited energy, intergalactic travel, and paradigm-shifting technologies for mankind. So hold on to your hats and be sure to subscribe for future episodes.